contestant, and Carolyn Stewart is going to speak about why public archaeology is important, a year of bruised hands, and a shocking lack of dinosaurs.
Well, it looks like the tent isn't threatening to collapse in from water like 2 years ago, so I think we're off to a good start, right? All right, as you said, the title of my talk is Why is Public Archaeology Important? A Year of Bruised Hands and a Shocking Lack of Dinosaurs. So let's just jump right in. What is public archaeology? Well, public archaeology, I think, we can go back to that age-old joke of if you ask 3 archaeologists, you're going to get 5 different answers, right? We can never agree on anything. So, the definition that I prefer, and the one that I use, is really general. It's just where archaeology meets the world. Really simple, and that can take the form of education, outreach events, use of volunteers, and this whole world is new to me, and it's giant. And I'm just going to talk about what my experiences are. So I had a unique position this year. I was a public archaeology specialist. And I'm just going to give you a brief history of how that came to be. There were 3 players involved. There was Archaeology Southwest, which I'm sure most of you guys know who we are. And if you don't, we have a booth right back in that tent, so come check us out. But Archaeology Southwest believes in preservation archaeology. And in order to accomplish that preservation, they use public programs to get people involved. So the second player is the Desert Research Learning Center, located in Tucson, Arizona, and they provide space and support for incoming researchers and interns to connect people and research and science together. And they're just getting their cultural resources program off the ground. And the third player is Tonto National Monument. So I want to ask you guys, has anybody actually been to Tonto National Monument? That's awesome. Okay, you guys don't count because I took you there, but so that's actually a surprising amount of people because first of all, there's name recognition. It gets a little difficult. We have Tonto National Monument, Tonto Natural Bridge, Tonto National Forest, so that gets a little crazy. And also, we're a tiny monument. We are 2 square miles in the middle of Arizona. Luckily, we have a lakeside view. Roosevelt Lake is right there. So we get a lot of people that are like, oh, I was on the way to the lake, go jet skiing, but we saw your sign, and we decided to stop in. We're like, great, so glad you're here, but it's not great you haven't heard of us. So there's obviously a need at Tonto National Monument for some more outreach to get people coming in. So, why a public archaeology specialist position? Why did these 3 great organizations come together to create this position? Well, let's face it, not all archaeologists are good at speaking with the public. That's not really why we got into the field for a lot of us, and that's fair. Sometimes that's kind of why we like the field, is we don't have to talk to the public. And that's completely fair, right? That's completely fair. But these specialist positions would be filled with weirdos like me who have a bit of knowledge, experience, a degree in archaeology, but also enjoy speaking to the public about how awesome our field is. Because educating the public is important. And I think the further into archaeology we get, the further, the more geeky, honestly, the more nerdy we get into this, we forget that the general public doesn't know the basics that we learned in ANTH 101. They don't know the difference between sherd and shard and all these words that spell check doesn't recognize at Groundstone and Fieldhouse. And is that 1 word or 2 words? And I don't know. And it kind of gets to the point that people still think that we dig dinosaurs. That's a problem, right? I'm sure we've all gotten that talk. And honestly, my friends and I, we kind of want to lie about what we do a little bit, to avoid those confrontations of, my optometrist saying, oh, I want to be an archaeologist since I saw Jurassic Park in the 90s, and, looters, and, gold, and Indiana Jones, and being shown petroglyphs of aliens while your friends abandon you to deal with these people alone. Honestly, but as a public archaeology specialist, I have to implore you to use these opportunities to tell people what we do. Because honestly, if we don't, nobody else is going to. It's not going to be Indiana Jones. It's not even going to be reputable news sources like MSN, who last month, this is 2018, had a headline that said, "Big dinosaur bones make archaeologists question the Triassic." So there's a disconnect here, right? There is a shocking lack of dinosaurs in our field, and there can't be. There can't be, because we need the people, and we need them now, right? I mean, I am so thankful I just came after that last talk, because he went over the threats we've endured already, and this year alone, the ironwood, bear's ears, and the truth of the matter is it's not going to get better anytime soon. The political environment, economics, we're just not in a great place unless we have people on our side. And that's where I come in, right? So the goal of public archaeology and my position this year was to make archaeology accessible to the public in engaging ways that inspire meaningful connections to the people and places of the past. Basically what that means is I think we're all a little bit selfish, and we have to connect things to our lives, our personal stories, in order to really care about them enough to fight, to advocate for these places. So let's talk about the work I actually accomplished. This position was really a pilot study, an experiment, if you will, into what a specific public archaeology specialist position can offer the Park Service, because I was located at Tonto National Monument. And it also was testing what events, activities, outreach programs actually worked in accomplishing that goal, in inspiring those meaningful connections. So how did I do this? The methodology really was to try a lot of stuff and see what worked. And I don't have time to go into everything we tried, but I'll talk about the successes. So outreach events that involve kids. Here's a big secret. Because once you get the kids involved, eventually they're going to need help, or they're going to brag, want to show off. So you get kind of the whole family, you get this captured audience, which is great. And 3 things, I'll let you in on a secret, that you can do to get kids interested is 1, tell them it's free. Parents get interested. All right, we can actually do this. 2 is you can take whatever you're making home with you. And 3, you can get messy. And their eyes just light up, and they're like, I wasn't planning on getting messy today, like in the middle of Phoenix at an arts festival. That's great. So you have this captive audience, and this is where we get to the bruised hands portion of my talk, is that I spent all spring doing these outreach events. And we made pendants. We made pendants that are replicas of what we find in Tonto National Monument, Salado pendants, and we used prehistoric tools. So we had kids and myself using hand drills, doing this every weekend, all spring, to the point that I couldn't use my hands anymore. But it was so worth it just to see these kids light up. And so then you get the whole family involved while you're doing this, because as they're drilling away, you're like, did you know that people were making this 700 years ago? Like 700 years ago, they're doing the same thing you are, and they get it. You just see in their eyes, they're like, that's pretty cool. And the parents jump in, they're like, you know, they were doing this before the internet, before TV, and you just get this whole, everyone's involved, and it's great. So the results of this is that these family-oriented outreach events were successful in allowing them to experience archaeology. Not only did it get people to come to our national monument, which we did here. We had people be like, went to the Mesa Arts Fest, now I'm here, fancy that. I'm like, perfect, that's exactly what we wanted to happen. But we also set that foundation. We started early, we set that foundation. We weren't out there digging dinosaur bones with these kids. We were making artifact replicas. That people made 700 years ago, right? So they have that idea of, okay, archaeology, people of the past got it. And that's what we're going for, right? So I think some people might argue that this specific position isn't necessary, right? In the Park Service, we already have interpretation, we already have resources, but honestly, I'm here to argue that it is necessary. I had a step in both of these fields, and we worked together really well. You know, while interpretation was managing the actual cliff dwellings at the park, I was able to do these outreach events. You know, because if you have staffing problems, like most of us probably do these times, can't really hire people. I was able to do that for the park, which is super cool. In addition, I think these positions lend a sort of credibility to what we're saying. I'm not saying Interp isn't credible or anything like that, but we add an extra layer. We add our degrees, our experiences, you can tie those back, you can tell people about the time you found, a projectile point in the middle of the woods. You can connect it to your experiences, and that makes it real to people, because they can level with you on that level. So basically what this all ended in was a strategic plan that I created for the monument. It was like 40 plus pages, took forever, but it outlined the successes and challenges of this past year, what worked, what didn't, in order to continue these programs at Tonto National Monument. I will unfortunately not be there because I'm going to pursue my master's degree in public archaeology, woohoo, at UNM, but we want these programs to continue on at the monument. But not only that, is we also want this to expand to other parks. If they made it work with 3 different partnerships, it is possible to have these positions available. So I just want to leave you with this last thought. And I was at a workshop last week making adobe bricks, and the instructor said, don't be afraid to advocate, and advocate loudly. And I believe that advocacy of preservation starts early with education through these public archaeology positions. Thank you all so much.